From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley to the complex mind of an architect to every far sector in space and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of Emerald Echo, a Green Lantern vidcast and podcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And with me, as always, is the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, comic book fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast, and just like Hal Jordan and John Stewart, we are back to do a new episode of the Emerald Echo.
Indeed, we are, and it's always fun to talk about Green Lantern with you in any circumstance, whether we're going back and talking about back issues, like we did last week with Rebirth, or last episode with Rebirth.
Yeah.
Or if we're talking about current series, and that's what we're doing now, because we once again have a current ongoing Green Lantern series, and that is a good thing. We're gonna have another Green Lantern series, but a mini. But we'll get to that in a bit. Okay, as part of our news portion. But Donnie, we always like to highlight when you or I go to a convention or things of that nature. So you've recently been off to a convention, haven't you?
Yes, I went to a convention and I picked up the Blackest Night 4-figure box set. It was one of the most rare figures, the most rare box sets, and it featured 4 figures that I'm currently editing the video, although you can go to my YouTube channel, that's Emerald Enthusiast, and see me actually pick the figures up. And I also picked up a few space fillers from the old Green Lantern Corps series. It was 218, 220, and 222.
Oh, nice. That's a good haul for your collection and your reviewing purposes. And I got to tell you, you've been a speed demon with those videos. There's so many videos. I'm like, wait a minute, let me catch up, let me watch. So I'm making my way through, catching up on them. And so I haven't gotten to the one you're saying yet, but I think I'm one behind. You reviewed some Batman figures, so that kind of
yes.
So
I actually gave that Batman figure away to a little girl that I know who's a huge Batman fan.
That girl, I think she's a smart lady.
Yeah,
the potential for her is great.
She loves Batman, and she's the daughter of a friend of mine. And I always encourage any kids that I know to keep, reading comics and indulging in comic book adaptations. And also got this. This has nothing to do with Green Lantern, but I got this Warlord figure at that con too.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So I hadn't seen this in stores. So.
Wow, that's going back on. That character, that performer is going back a while for sure. But
yeah, we're talking about
Just to
and you know where you can find out information on that, Adam?
Yeah. Where's that?
That's the Wayback Wrestling Mania podcast, available right here on Multiverse Musings, the vidcast. Right. Make sure you subscribe to this channel today.
We had a big WrestleMania episode not too long ago, and there's another. What's the next big?
We had Backlash, and then we have Night of Champions coming up.
Right. I think so. I think maybe we'll do Night of Champions, and then again SummerSlam, obviously, because that's a core premium live event. What a stupid name. That's what it is.
Look, PLV.
Folks, I'm in an ordinary mood.
PLE.
I'm in an ordinary mood today, folks. And so if you hear me say certain things that are not expletives, because I wasted all those yesterday. But that's why. But anyway, circling back to that girl for a second, that Batman fan there.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up the president of your country. That's how smart she is. I'll throw that out right now.
She's certainly smarter than some of the politicians I know already.
I mean, that doesn't take much on either side of North America, but I digress.
Yeah.
So you had a good time. You had a good showing at that con, and it's good to hear.
And it was bigger this year. They had more space, so it was easier to still distance because people are still catching COVID. Not as serious anymore, but I don't want it. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I don't want you to get it because I've had it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fun. I mean, thank God for the vaccine. We're pro-vaccine here, folks,
That's right.
because science is it's a good thing. I mean,
Yes.
had the Kryptonians listened to their scientists, maybe things would have ended differently for them. So
Right. And
there's
I don't have a Green Lantern ring to like purge all the toxins in my body if I catch something like that. So.
I mean, it'd be cool if if we had the Green Lantern powers. Like if we made a construct of a mask, would that work?
Oh, sure it would. Yeah.
Okay.
Green Lanterns have done that before. Plus,
Okay.
they can pretty much breathe in any kind of environment.
See.
Yeah. So
unfortunately, listen to don't be like Krypton's Science Council. Listen to scientists. Anyway, but no, I'm glad you were able to go and feel safe doing so, and it seems like you came home with a nice haul. So that's always, a bonus.
it's the Blackest Night box set. It has Fatality, Blue Beetle, Indigo Monk, and Hal Jordan in it, and that's the review I'm working on right now.
Perfect. Can't wait to catch up and get to that point. But I definitely will. But speaking of Green Lantern, we're obviously going to review Green Lantern #1, which is starring Hal Jordan with a backup feature that stars John Stewart. But there is another Green Lantern book on the way. Correct, Donnie?
Yes, it is Alan Scott, the Green Lantern. And we'll learn more about the mysterious Red Lantern from the Golden Age. And DC promises that this will be, quote unquote, Alan's greatest enemy. So perhaps Alan's getting some more focus in the future. I certainly hope so.
I think it's awesome that the JSA is getting some shine recently. And Alan Scott is the first Green Lantern. The cool thing about him is that he's a little different in terms of his power set.
Yes.
Than the lanterns that we know from the Green Lantern Corps. So that makes his story even more interesting. And I'm intrigued to look back and to go back. What the description that I read talked about going back, part of the story taking place in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Which is, an interesting era, of the past. So I like that kind of stuff. So I'm really intrigued, and it's pretty cool that because also of note, not for this particular podcast because it's Green Lantern centric, but DC regardless. Jay Garrick is getting a spotlight miniseries as well from writer Jeremy Adams.
Well, you know what that could mean. Eventually, those two could pair up again.
Yeah, it could be like the Another World's Finest book, but with these two characters.
Or Faster Friends.
Yeah, call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But,
and since they're old, since they're old guys like me, not quite as fast as they used to be, friends, or something like that.
Whatever the title, not quite as fast anymore, friends.
Slightly slower, friends.
that's not easy to hashtag. But it's cool because and Jeremy Adams is going to write that one, who is currently writing on the new Green Lantern book that we're going to be reviewing soon.
That we're going to be talking about here.
But
as well as Philip Kennedy Johnson, whom we had on the show before. He is writing the John Stewart backup story in this, and he will be writing the new John Stewart title.
Yeah, he definitly will.
Yeah, we got to get that guy back here.
I would love to have him back. So
he's interesting. Yeah,
I hope he can find his way back on our show. We'd love to have him to talk Green Lantern this time. He's still doing amazing things in Action Comics, which Donnie and I will power through and get back to because we're quite behind, but we'll get on that. There's a lot of summer to handle that, and we will do that over the course of the summer. But
I should also say Alan's also making an appearance DC Pride through the years.
Right, which makes sense that he would be part of that. Now, the interesting thing about these JSA spinoffs is that Jeff Johns is kind of the creative director, if you will. Essentially, he's like what James Gunn is doing with DC Studios. That's essentially what Jeff Johns is doing with the JSA corner of the DC universe, and I love it because creatively Jeff Johns is a genius. Also, it makes all those the cultists of a certain director look stupid because they told me he was fired, and apparently he's not. So there's that. But Tim Sheridan is writing the Green Lantern.
Twitter is a wealth of misinformation.
Twitter is a cesspool of crap. That's what Twitter is.
I see so many fake headlines there.
I'm just there to promote the show, complain about the Leafs is more accurate, and talk to Donnie and talk about list all my multiverse wives because people get entertainment from that. That's why I'm there. But it's a cesspool of crap. Yeah. But I digress. Anyway, Tim Sheridan is the writer of this Alan Scott book. We know him from episodes of Masters of the Universe Revelation. He wrote the Scarecrow episode, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And that was fantastic.
Yes.
He also co-wrote the Flashpoint Beyond comic.
Yeah, Tim Sheridan actually has a pretty long list of creative things to his credit. So
yeah. So and then the artist is
Ken Tormey.
Yeah, I just wanted you to say that name to make sure you said it.
I hope I said it correctly.
I think you did.
I actually tried to look it up, Mr. Tormey, so
he did. I can vouch for that.
I did my best. So
and he's worked on Superman Son of Kal-El. His art is really cool. So I'm looking forward to this. And of course, Donnie and I will
Sheridan also did the screenplay for The Long Halloween.
Absolutely, and that was a fantastic animated film. Yeah. And I believe he wrote or co-wrote the Masters of the Universe Revelation prequel comic, right? I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
with Kevin Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw a long list of things there to go through. Like I said, he's a pretty prolific writer. So
yeah, and so when you get a good writer and pair him with an equally good artist, usually good things are afoot. And Donnie and I will, of course, cover it.
As we see here with Zermanico in this issue that we're getting ready to talk about.
Oh, man. But yeah, so there is a plethora of good Green Lantern reading material coming.
Plethora.
Yeah, you like that one. Huh? And
I love that word, plethora.
There's a plethora of changes in the offseason for the Leafs coming, I hope. But anyway, so Donnie and I are going to cover this Alan Scott Green Lantern miniseries. And hey, chances are we're probably going to cover the Jay Garrick miniseries on the DC Comics Chronicles too. So we're going to cover all this great stuff, and we hope you come along for the ride with us.
I can't believe The Flash is ending, by the way, the TV show.
Yeah.
Almost there.
And listen, I've had my misgivings about certain seasons, but this last little run of episodes has been fantastic lately. So if you're behind, Donnie, catch up because it's been some good stuff.
No, I'm actually not behind. I caught up last week finally.
Yeah.
So
yeah, good. It's been good stuff. Very good stuff. It's tempting me to want to put the physical book back on my list, but I gotta keep control, so it might have to stay on the digital side. But good news by the way, can I mention this for digital readers real quick?
Sure.
If you're reading on your Amazon Kindle books and stuff, they now have the guided view feature, which Comixology had for the longest time, which I loved, and it's back. And so,
is that like the panel by panel feature?
Yeah, where they zoom in. Yeah,
that's what they have on DC Infinite.
Yeah, and they have it now on Kindle. So
awesome,
which they didn't before. So in that respect, Adam is very happy.
Yeah.
If you talk to Adam about hockey, Adam was not so happy. But I digress. But anyway, Donnie and I are going to be covering this new Green Lantern book, just as we're going to cover this other new Green Lantern book that we're going to talk about after the break. So that's a hint that we're going to take a break. Go get a water, take a washroom break, whatever you need to do. Come back on the other side. We'll be right back with some Hal Jordan discussion. Stay tuned.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, And remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back.
Indeed we are. And so is Hal Jordan, consequently. And many people are happy that he's back. I am one of them. But the fortunate thing about me and Donnie is we like the other lanterns too. So even when he's not center stage, we're happy because other lanterns are to the forefront. But Hal is back, and so he's got his own book. And,
quick aside, can you see me okay, Adam?
I can see you. You're not John Cena, so you're all good.
Because all of a sudden I have two of you up here. So
well, you know why? Because the more of me, the merrier. At least that's what.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's Adam from Earth 2 up here and Adam from like Earth.
See, that's what
16.
my multiverse wives say. The more the merrier. But that's for another podcast.
It's like I'm talking to Jimmy and Jay Uso.
That's a late night podcast. That will be. But yeah, we the ones. Should I point now or what how's it doing? Yeah. So before we get into it, Donnie, who's the creative team behind this new book that we have?
Just real quickly, we have writer Jeremy Adams, artist and cover artist Zermanico, and we also have the backup written by Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Take it away, Donnie. What do we need to know as we get into this? Let's go into it.
All right. What you need to know here is that Green Lantern is taking a turn back. What I want to say, just to kind of preface things here, is Green Lantern is one of the most versatile characters, and I should say mythos because I don't mean a specific character, because you can tell the kind of sprawling cosmic story that we got with Jeff Thorne, and now we're taking a turn back to an Earth-based story with Hal Jordan that is going to be more, it seems at least, character-centered. So it'll be interesting to see what Jeremy Adams adds to the character development of Hal Jordan at this point in time.
Absolutely. Again, I think that's the fun of Green Lantern is that you can have Earth-based stories, but also grand space operas, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
There's a wide variety of things, right? Like, you know, as much as I love me Batman, you know, all kinds of Batman, but do I want to see him in space? I mean, depending on the context, but there's a limited amount of things you could do with Batman in space. Batman in space would be the equivalent of on the Watchtower, you know, or in a ship taking him to space with the Justice League on some sort of mission. With Green Lantern, it's not precluded to that. It's if he wants to fly to another galaxy, he can do that, right? And so there's just a different breadth of storytelling capability, but it's very malleable that you could do both, right? And sometimes the same character, you know, you could have 2 or 3 issues centered on Earth, and then another 2 or 3 set in space with the same character or a different lantern, but the possibility.
And that's what I mean about the versatility. You know, you could have Hal or John, you know, with their ring on, fighting against a godlike power, because a Green Lantern, you know, an experienced Green Lantern with willpower can do that. And then at the same time, they can take that ring off and have an earthbound ground level story. Yeah,
agreed.
So what we need to know here, too, is it says that the United Planets have declared Sector 2814 an unsafe liability. And from one of the...
I'm offended by that.
Well, and it seems that based on, again, one of the future covers, it says that Earth has been quarantined.
Well, that's accurate.
Well, you know, I was going to say, that's understandable. I don't know if that has anything to do with COVID. Probably not, but
it's very accurate to the current landscape of real life.
So we see that Hal Jordan has quit in frustration and come back to Earth.
Right. I mean, because that's what you do if you're unsatisfied with your job. You just say enough of this and try and do something else. But you know, I liked seeing him sort of. There was the scenes where he's sort of recollecting and just having a drink, non-alcoholic, of course, but and sort of trying to reacclimate himself, find his place again, which makes sense because he's been, by and large, away from Earth for so long. Like we've seen him in Dark Crisis, but other than that, he's been gone from Earth for a good chunk of time. Like,
right, and he was, helping John fight the battle on Oa as well.
Yeah. So it makes sense that he would feel kind of like a lost soul upon reemergence on Earth.
Well, and what we see in this issue is he mentions that he only has $50 in the bank, so he's broke and he's a little directionless. And that's an interesting story point that I'll bring up a little later in the podcast. Is Jeremy Adams wants to deal with a certain theme here it'll be interesting to see where he goes with this, where he takes Hal Jordan in light of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's and again, that's a piece of the story that makes sense. Like if you've been gone from Earth for so long, not performing your non-superhero job because you don't have one, you'd be broke. Like it adds up. It's not
unless you're independently wealthy like Bruce Wayne. He could leave for a while.
Yeah, but even he's not as wealthy as he once was. Remember, he's currently
he could still take a break though
in a brownstone. I mean, I'm sure he could lend Hal Jordan a couple of bucks.
Yeah,
and still be okay.
It sounds like Hal Jordan's in Peter Parker territory.
Though I will say, after Green Lantern Rebirth, is Bruce Wayne going to be inclined to lend Hal Jordan any money? Probably not. He's probably going to have to look to Oliver Queen if he needs a handout.
He said they were even because, after Hal punched him, he punched Hal back. So
okay, so maybe he would help. I don't know. We'll see. But
another one of the interesting developments here, we also see that Sinestro is on Earth for as yet an unnamed reason.
Yeah, and that's always dubious because my first question, okay, what is he doing here? What does he want?
And you never know. Sinestro has had so many different motivations for doing certain things over the years. You don't know if it's something that's anti-hero-ish or he just wants to get back at Hal Jordan for something or he needs Hal Jordan's help. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the curious part about it because when you see him, he's cloaked, right? He's got a hood on.
Yeah, he's in a bar and he's got a hood on.
Yeah, and so he
seems to be annoyed when the bartender's like, "The Green Lantern is back, rounds for everyone."
Yeah, he's not happy. I was half expecting him to pull a Dolph Ziggler and be like, "It should have been me," when the TV screen, when the newscaster was talking. But he was not amused by the euphoria of the patrons at the bar that Green Lantern was back.
And on the tails of that, we should talk about the fact that Carol seems to be very apprehensive about Hal's return here. Now, I'm not going to call this a criticism, but she is more brusque with Hal than I thought she would have been. There's obviously something behind this behavior. And we learn later on, actually, that she has a new love interest. And the last page of this issue designates this love interest as a fiance. Not just a boyfriend, fiance.
So
this is serious, and we don't know who it is yet. By the way, Adam and I were talking about this before the podcast. If you remember, for those of you who have read Green Lantern for a while, when Carol was temporarily involved with Kyle Rayner, Hal Jordan was just absolutely petulant and annoyed to no end. And I thought that made for some very funny and interesting dialogue. Not all Hal Jordan fans liked it, but I thought it was funny.
I thought it was hilarious because he.
So if this turns out to be somebody Hal knows, we could be in for some really funny dialogue.
Imagine if it's Guy Gardner.
I was thinking the same thing.
Maybe she has a thing for lanterns. Who knows? Maybe lanterns are her weakness, right?
I mean, my guess is, and I haven't seen any hints from Jeremy Adams. My guess is that it won't be another hero, just a gut feeling. But
it'll be Tom, the guy that
Tom Kalmaku. Yeah, that's crossed my mind as well.
That would piss off Hal.
Mhm.
That's one of his best buddies there. Kind of.
Yeah, we haven't seen Tom for a while, so yeah.
Encroaching in his business. So
breaking the code.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which we won't mention because it's very. It's very.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to be respectful on this podcast.
Yeah.
You know what we're talking about, so
everybody knows.
We just wouldn't phrase it that way.
Oh,
so, yeah.
But,
so go ahead, sir.
But in terms of Carol's sort of brisk reaction, as you put it,
mm-hmm.
I took it as like she knows that she's susceptible of falling into the the old routine with Hal, and maybe she's trying to present this standoffishness to sort of prevent herself from easily falling back into Hal's arms, right?
Because, and if there's one thing that Jeremy Adams gets right, it's Hal Jordan's voice here. Hal Jordan is his usual won't take no for an answer self.
Cocky, yeah.
And he keeps asking her out over and over, even after
he calls her, yeah. And didn't he call her Star Sapphire at one point?
Yeah, he called her Queen of the Zamorons, and she was not amused.
and one of her employees was like, "What?" And she's like, "Ignore him." But yeah, so I just think it's a function of her, building up those walls, protecting herself. Because think about it, every time she's gotten back with Al, he's up and left her, right? And maybe she just want to put herself through that again.
Or she's had a Star Sapphire ring drag her into the middle of a war.
Yeah.
So she's obviously trying to, be professional here. But hey, that brings up the point that I was talking about. She mentions in this issue that basically all of these aircraft companies are going away from test pilots and they're using drones now, that they're phasing out the type of thing that Hal Jordan is.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see. We've seen Hal Jordan in the past with different careers. Will he go a different direction here? Will he stay with Ferris and learn how to fly the drones? What direction will he go in? Because obviously we know that this is more than just a job to Hal Jordan. It's part of his identity.
It's a lifestyle, yeah.
Yes.
Wasn't he a insurance salesman?
Yes, he was. Yes.
But not a shoe salesman.
Not a shoe salesman.
He should do shoe sales next. I think going the Al Bundy route would be very, the Married with Children route. That would be fun. I think that would be entertaining. But no, what's interesting about that with the whole him wanting to resume his career at Ferris Air, but they're phasing, test pilots out in favor of drones. That was very much, I think, I don't know if Jeremy Adams did this on purpose, but it echoed sort of the plot line of Top Gun Maverick. A little bit.
Well, a lot of people draw that parallel between Hal Jordan and the characters in that movie. So,
yeah, I mean, the difference is Tom Cruise's character was brought in to sort of be the instructor to the next, generation of pilots. And in this, it's like, the pilots are generally being phased out. But the interesting thing is the way Hal sort of.
And let me just say, that's a timely theme because the world really is in kind of a period of upheaval when it comes to a lot of jobs.
Yeah, in multiple fields.
In multiple fields. So that's understandable that Jeremy Adams might want to address this.
Most companies are would much rather do things, visually online.
People are doing a lot of work from home. I read an article recently where it said that people working from home have tripled in the last 3 years due to the pandemic.
Yeah,
and some of that's going to be permanent. So
yeah. I wouldn't go back into an office. But I like the scene where Hal is the new young pilots that do remain at Ferris Air are doing that training or that exercise with Hal to see if he, quote unquote, still's got it.
Right.
And like you see how competitive instantly he gets and tries to one up them, and that was very reminiscent of Tom Cruise's character in Top Gun Maverick, he was trying to show the youngins, okay, you guys think you're cool, but this is how it's done, So I got a lot of parallels to Top Gun Maverick with this issue.
Yeah, and that's an immutable part of Hal Jordan's personality.
Yeah.
He's always competitive. He's always quick thinking, and he's always a hero. And he usually uses that competitive, brash nature for a good purpose. Not always,
right? Yeah,
but usually.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and one of the things he does here, we see that a month previous to some of the events that we're seeing in this book, he confronts a new villain by the name of Steel Fury, who is, I don't exactly know much about the guy, and because I tried to look up like any hints of this, I think this is a brand new character, a guy who got his hands on an old Manhunter like outer shell, like the armor of one of the Manhunter robots.
Which would be cool too.
I'm not exactly sure how that would work though. I'm like, how much of like the inner workings are like still there if there's a guy inside of this?
That's
or maybe
true.
I'm overthinking it. I tend to do that with Green Lantern.
Well, I'm sure Jeremy Adams will find that out as you tweet at him, and I don't know if his messages are open, but beware. I think any incoming writer is gonna have Jeff Thorne's gonna shoot him a message say, "There's that Emerald Enthusiast guy. He's gonna message you at 2 a.m. asking random Green Lantern questions."
You would not believe how many Green Lantern questions go through my mind at work. I mean, it's just like constant thing. Anyway,
Yeah, I get it.
Speaking of, I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, so it says specifically that the United Planets are the ones who have caused Hal Jordan to quit. So exactly what role do we have with the Guardians at this point? Because Hal's ring, he still has it. It's still functioning.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see like how that's going to play out. Are the Guardians still on his side? Are they still acting in some kind of official way? Do they disagree with the United Planets here? So,
and I like that. I like that scene where he was, that battle where he was, that kind of standoff with
Steel Fury.
Steel Fury. I was trying to think of the name. Yeah. That was pretty cool because you had like.
I really like the way Zermanico drew him too.
The gridlock with the cars, and and they're in a standoff, and there's mini explosions going off and things of that nature, and But even the scene, I think, prior to that, where Green Lantern saves those, what were they, miners, steel workers? What were they?
Yes, and by the way, I want to credit Zermanico here. The drill apparatus that he drew. Let me just say, and I don't mean this as a criticism either. This wasn't the most action-packed issue because it shouldn't have been, because it was an introduction.
Yeah, you're sort of.
But I always look for at least one really well-drawn construct in a Green Lantern book. There should at least be one.
Yeah.
At least be one very intricate, well-drawn construct. There were several here. That was the one that sticks out in my mind of Hal Jordan coming to save the day. By the way, one of those miners, his name was Denny. So I'm wondering if that was an homage to Denny O'Neil. Yeah.
That's what I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that page where he sort of like you see the light and they're looking up, and then the next image you see is Hal sort of hovering with pointing his ring in that direction. That was very heroic, very uplifting.
Right.
That was probably my favorite image of the.
And I always talk about this on my figure reviews, the big power pose with the arms outstretched. And, I love that pose. And I also love this last shot of Hal Jordan here when he is confronting Steel Fury. And Steel Fury's like, "Who are you?" And we see Hal Jordan, in, full Green Lantern uniform with the ring just bursting out with power saying, "Take one guess."
Yeah, and the other image that I liked as well was that I didn't mention specifically the art, but when they were having that test with the in the simulators.
Yes.
Because for the longest time, I thought that was actually happening and not a
I thought
simulation.
that was a construct at first. Hal's plane.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an actual plane and not a simulator. But so it was very well drawn, very action packed. I was humming the Top Gun theme while I was reading it, just let people know. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about? This, at least the main story, before we
No,
move on
I
to the
am
backup.
again. I really want to credit Zermanico here. I like that the way that he draws Hal Jordan, the haphazard sprawl of the hair,
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
reminded me of the Silver Age Hal Jordan. And again, this, and the way Jeremy Adams wrote this, the early, Silver Age incarnation of Hal Jordan and Carol Ferris,
Yeah,
the
it felt very. That's what it
the
felt like. The
drama
two.
between the
Yeah,
two of
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Yes. It
yeah.
was a different dynamic because she was pursuing him back then, well, specifically Green Lantern. But this felt like it echoed the Silver Age a lot, and it was a new beginning. So I'm
Absolutely.
very happy that we have this story.
Yeah. Um, so how do you want to do this? Do you want to rate each story separately?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So the main story, out of 5 for art and 5 for the writing, well, how would you?
I'm going to give it 5 and 5. I love the way that this started out, hit the ground running, and let's go. I am so excited for this.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 5 across the board because Jeremy Adams really understood the characters, the main characters, like you said, and really captured that Silver Age conception of them.
Mm-hmm.
But also making it feel fresh and modern. And then the art was just spectacular. So I am so looking forward to this book. I gotta say, when using the guided view to read this, and the way it revealed the splash page of that hero shot that you were talking about, Hal Jordan, I stared at that for a couple of minutes because it looked so good. So
yeah, I've really got to get the 1 in 100 variant that has that one shot of Hal Jordan on the cover.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to get all the covers. By the way, I saw Jeremy Adams. Obviously, as the writer, he gets comps, and he had all the covers. And I was watching that video and just drooling, and I'm like, "Gimme!" Ooh, there's a lot of variant covers this time.
There is. There's a plethora, as I keep saying, like that word. All right, so the backup story by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, and the artist on this is, I believe, it's Montos. Yes.
Yeah.
So, this left me with a lot of questions, and I don't mean that I didn't like it, but we see John back home on Earth helping his mother with some work. I really like the way John was drawn here. Very young and youthful, very young and vibrant looking John. I like the way his mother was drawn. And, Philip Kennedy Johnson has talked about talking to Jeff Thorne about the things that makes John Stewart tick. Unlike Hal Jordan, John Stewart, I believe, sees himself beyond the Green Lantern Corps someday. And I don't mean that he's bigger than the Green Lantern Corps, but that being a closed chapter at some point, that he might want to do something else, that his life doesn't necessarily need heroism. He'll do it for as long as is necessary, but there's another side to John Stewart.
Yeah.
And I think this is a glimpse into that here.
Yeah, I would agree. And I just really like the scenes with him and his mother, just because no matter how, old John Stewart is, you can see that his mother still sees him as her baby boy. You know what I mean? The way she interacts with him.
All parents do that. No matter how old your child gets, that's still your baby.
Yeah, and even the way he's there to care for her, and he's putting her first, and he sort of wants to stay for a while, and
that's what he said. A lot's happened, but I'm done with that now. I think I need to be here now.
Yeah, and so that whole conversation where she's prepared for him to have to leave again, but he clearly wants to kind of settle down and put down some roots or whatever.
Yeah.
That relationship felt very true and authentic. So I like the way that was written. In terms of like the sci-fi-ness of it all, that it felt very much in line with what Philip Kennedy Johnson did with the original, with the book that he did.
Yeah, that we talked about here.
Dark
Yeah.
Crisis. Very much in that vein.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's picking up story threads or not, but it felt like that.
Well, we'll see. And we also see some pages here with Guy Gardner, and it says another time, another universe.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on. I mean,
well, I don't think we're supposed to know all the answers to that.
No, of course not. But is that a multiverse? Is that
right?
A future? Like, is that further along in the timeline? Because Guy was an old man. He was old man Guy.
This is interesting. I mean, exactly what is the interplay here between these two characters?
Right.
Because the younger guy refers to the older looking guy as Guy Gardner.
Right. So,
or Gardner, at least.
Right. Well, you assume it's Guy. And that's seeing. So my question is, it's twofold. One, is this further along in the timeline of John Stewart, like the book that we, the John that we just saw with his mother, but is this later on in that timeline, or is this another multiverse entirely?
Now let's remember that Jeff Thorne's story from Future State, where Guy landed on that planet, and was there for a while. Is maybe this a continuation of that timeline? Because remember, Guy came back, but some of that Future State timeline changed. Right. And I'm just guessing here.
So many unique possibilities, but it's like even the villain that they were setting up, I think was fascinating. It was like I think it was a female.
It says the rise of the Revenant Queen, and they
look like alien zombies.
They look very Black Lanternish. Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of the background, but alien zombies.
I'm not saying, by the way, I don't want to confuse anybody. I'm not saying they're Black Lanterns. I'm saying
alien
that's
zombies was the first image that thought that came to my mind when I saw her. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But then you're right. The Black Lantern saga was alien zombies when you boil it down. So, like so many, and it echoes what we were talking about before, Donnie, where in the same book, right, you have very much a grounded, earthbound Green Lantern story with Hal Jordan, and then and part of John's story, but then you have this sci-fi, time-bending, universe-bending insanity. With Guy Gardner, supposedly, and what Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing. So it speaks to the malleability of the IP that is Green Lantern. And again, I was so intrigued by the mystery and asking so many questions, but guess what that's going to do? It's going to keep me coming back for more until I get the answers.
Right. And I want to point out, Philip Kennedy Johnson talked about a new oath.
Ooh,
so this younger character here, he actually says this, and this is something new. So this, again, leads to more questions. The torch that batters back the night. I am the lantern in the dark. Let evil cower in the light of all who wear the lantern's mark.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting oath, and it's going to be. I hope we get an origin for it, like a why, a how.
Well, and the old version of Guy Gardner or Gardner, he says
old man Gardner. Let's call him old man Gardner. Take a cue from Logan.
Oh yeah, just as long as nobody is having babies with their cousin. Anyway.
Well, I mean, who?
Yeah.
What part of space does this take place in?
Anyway, so that's a podcast for a different day. But this old version of Guy says it is.
Florida, I heard that's mostly the Florida Panthers mantra. The fan base. I'm bitter. Continue.
Also a different podcast. So he says it is you, as if he had some concept of who and what this different type of lantern is.
I'm fascinated. And you know what's cool? I love how gritty and I know it's a terribly overused word, but I like my vocabulary is not overly scholarly. So
hey, you said plethora, man.
Well, I did.
You knew how to use it. So.
I mean, there's only so many words I can throw. Listen, I'm still in the don't use a 4-letter word on this podcast mindset because of last night, but I digress. So it's very gritty, very very sharp is the word I would use, and it's not as clean, and I mean this in a good way, as what we saw with Zermanico. Like with Zermanico is a very super heroic, classic kind of, classic lines, all that kind of stuff. This fit, it was much more sci-fi, edgy sci-fi. And I love the two different tones that we've got going, both in story and in art here.
Well, yeah, and obviously, I mean, the place where these two characters are, it's interesting to see exactly. I'm like, is this, one of like the lantern houses, like a sector house or something? It doesn't exactly look like that, but there's obviously a lot of power here. And then, like you said, once the Revenant Queen shows up, Montos did a great job at drawing these zombie-like characters.
Yeah, oh, definitely, absolutely. He could easily find work in a horror book. Maybe he has already, but I don't know. But I could see him fitting. Like if Philip Kennedy Johnson decides to bring back the Black Lanterns, I think this artist could do a bang-up job with them. I think it'd be fantastic. So, but I'm so intrigued. I can't wait for more. My only negative in regards to this backup story is that I wish it was longer.
Yeah, I mean, they only had so many pages, but I mean, I was really intrigued by what exactly is going on here because it just gave us a little taste of that. It was like, getting a couple bites of ice cream and then,
it's
you
like
can't
the
finish the
sample
bowl.
at Costco, right? They give you a little spoon.
Right, exactly.
Say, well, I want the rest now. And then you have to buy it.
Let me also say, and I know people are going to say, you're splitting hairs here. I really like the way that the younger Lantern character, the way the ring was drawn, because it's a good size. It seems very powerful. The lines are sharp and it's well colored.
That's not splitting hairs. Listen. If you got a character whose main weapon is a power ring, they should be able. The ring has to be drawn well.
Yeah, and it is drawn very well.
It's
also drawn.
Sword.
Let me say, and you won't be able to see this if you're. It's also drawn like within the symbol here.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Yeah, you're right.
And I really like this. So there's so much about this story I want to know. I can't wait till the next issue. So
yeah, we got about 28, 27 some odd days.
Yeah,
as we're recording this, so not too long. But let's. Is there anything else you want to mention, or let's?
No, here's some of my variant covers, by the way.
Oh, it's a beauty.
And I really like this one with Sinestro. Kind of.
He looks like he's up to no good. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and here's Hal with the construct flowers. This kind of tells the story of their interaction there between, Hal kind of coming back and stating his case, and Carol's like,
he got friend zoned real quick.
So I'm just so happy to have new Green Lantern comics.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. Like I said, for me, the character has some extra meaning because one of my best friends introduced me to the character, and he's no longer here. So when I read a Green Lantern story, it brings back that connection for me. So I'm happy to have a monthly dose of that. And so with that said, what would you rate the backup for story and art?
I'm going to give the art a 5 and the story a 4.5 just because there was so little of it. And I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with what was written. It was just that there was so little. It left me so hungry for more,
My score is exactly the same for those exact same reasons. So 4.5 for story and 5 for the art. But, Philip Kennedy Johnson, given his track record with what he's doing on action, is a master storyteller. So I have no doubt that it won't be. I'm pretty sure that we're going to be handing out 5s in the very near future for this iteration of the story.
He has such reverence for the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah.
And that's something that I admire so much.
And what I like about him is that if it's a character he's not overly familiar with, he'll avail himself and make sure he gets to live the land before.
I listened to his interview on the Lantern Cast, and he even took a suggestion. Green Lantern Volume 3, number 147, which is a great issue, by the way. They recommended that to him, and he's like, yeah, I'll go read it. So I have all the respect in the world.
And I have no doubt that he will, because he's that kind of guy. So, and he's doing another green individual in the Incredible Hulk real soon. So we'll be covering that on the Marvel Masterworks.
Yeah.
And so listen, so far I'm physically collecting none. I'm digitally collecting one Marvel book, and that's Daredevil, of course. Soon it will be 2 with Philip Kennedy Johnson's Incredible Hulk. So there you go. But that's it. We've done the ratings. We've talked about the story. This episode has come to an end. But of course, if you want to talk more Green Lantern with us, you can on social media. Donnie, where do they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and TikTok as the Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk comics. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk Green Lantern. And please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for reviews of all the things you see behind me.
Agreed. And
beside me.
If you want to follow me on social media, it's at Adam_Leeds fan. You should say disgruntled, but it can't because there's too many characters. So find me there on Twitter. The podcast network has its own Twitter account at MMPDC. We have a Facebook group listed in the description below. Click that. I will add you. And we can continue the conversation there if you so choose. But until next time, remember that Green Lantern number 1 is forever. From the first Green Lantern story in the book to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.